All right, class, in this lesson, we're going to dive a little bit deeper into the stock market, and we're going to look specifically at the stock market ticker and explain what type of information is available. And then we're also going to learn how to determine the total value of a trade and trade volumes from the ticker information. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. Let's start with some background information. Okay, so how is stock market data transmitted? Well, we have what's called the Dow Jones Industrial Average, or also known as the Dow, and the Dow follows the trading actions of 30 large public companies. Now, in the past, or historically, these were industrial companies, but now the Dow includes companies and corporations from various industries that have a more significant impact on the economy, and so that would include telecommunications, pharmaceuticals, broadcasting, retail, insurance, and more. Okay, now one of the first stock information transmission machine was actually invented by the famous Thomas Edison, who also invented electricity. This machine was known as the Universal Stock Ticker and had a printing speed of about 1 character per second. It was also referred to as the ticker because of the ticking sound it made as it was printing the tape. This ticker tape machine replaced the need for handwritten and hand-delivered message about stock trades, right? So it was a little bit more efficient to get more information in a more succinct way out to the public. Now today, ticker machines are not being used, and they've been replaced by scrolling data that appears on billboards, computers, TV screens, and so forth. Now, with respect to the stock ticker, there are 4 important pieces of information. The first one is called the stock symbol, or this is the ticker symbol, and these are a set of letters that represent or identify a corporation whose shares are traded. Okay. The second piece of information is the number of shares that were traded, and they could be represented by the letter K to represent the number in thousands. So if you see something that says 10K, it means that 10,000 shares were traded. Or 10M would be representing 10 million, and then occasionally, you won't see this very often, but you might see the letter B, so 10B would be 10 billion shares traded. The third piece of information is the trading price, so the price per share that was traded at that point in time. And then you'll also get symbols, which are directional arrows, and these arrows indicate whether the trading price for a single share went up relative to the previous day's closing price, or if it went down compared to the previous day's closing price. Okay, now let's use this in an example so that you have better context. So let's say, for example, Marcy is following the stock market ticker, scrolling across the bottom of her TV screen on a cable business station. She's purchased some shares of Visa Inc. last week and wants to know if there are any current trades taking place. So she knows that Visa Inc. has the ticker symbol V, and she sees the following information, right? V12K at 72.73 with this triangle pointing up, 0.12. So the question is, what can Marcy learn from this line of symbol? Okay, so what she can learn is that the latest trade for Visa, and we know it's Visa because of this symbol for the company Visa Inc. The last trade was 12,000 shares, and it was traded at $72.73, and that price was up from yesterday's closing price by 12 cents. Okay, so as you can see, you can find quite a bit of information here: the company name, or the symbol, the number of shares traded, the price that it was traded at, and then how it compared to yesterday's closing price. All right, let's take a look at example 2. Tom needed money for graduate school tuition. He called his broker and asked her to sell all 3,000 of his Coca-Cola shares on Wednesday as soon as the trading price hits $44 per share. Okay, so in the past and even today, you could call your broker and say, hey, when a stock price hits this price, I want you to sell this many shares. All right, so Coca-Cola symbol is KO. And Tom knew that Coca-Cola closed at $44.25 the day before on Tuesday. So how will his trade appear on his ticker? All right, so his trade's going to look as follows. KO, and then that's for Coca-Cola, and then the number of shares, that would be 3K, and then at the price of $44, okay, and that's going to be down 0.25 from yesterday's closing price, okay? Now, we don't know the context of why Tom wants to do this other than he needs the money for graduate school, but it's possible that he knows that the share price is going to continue to drop, and so he wants to sell it as soon as possible, okay? And that's why he's willing to sell it 25 cents less than yesterday's closing price. Now, on the other hand, it's also possible that he purchased Coca-Cola shares many years ago and maybe purchased it at $20 or $30 a share, and so he's already making a significant profit on this. Okay, let's take a look at example 3. So Tony purchased 15,000 shares of stock of Target Corporation at $78.43 per share. Her trade appeared on the stock ticker as TGT, 15K at 78.43, down 0.17. So what was the total value of her trade? All right, so to calculate this, it's fairly straightforward. You're going to take 15,000 shares, and you're going to multiply that by $78.43. And multiplying that out, you would get $1,176,450. All right, let's take a look at the next example. So Grandpa Rich left his 3 grandchildren, Nicole, Jeff, and Kristen, a total of 87,500 shares of Apple Inc. in his will. Okay, Apple is represented as AAPL. The grandchildren sold all of the shares at a price of $96.91 on Friday. Let me go ahead and correct this here. The closing price of Apple on Thursday, the previous day, was $94.83. How did this trade appear on the stock ticker? Okay, so we would start with the stock symbol for Apple, which is AAPL, and the number of shares sold was all of them, so it would be 87,500. Okay, and that is at, and they purchased it at, they sold it at 96.91. Okay, and compared to Thursday's closing, it would be up. Okay, and now we have to determine the difference in price. So 96.91 minus 94.83 works out to $2.08. So it's going to be up $2.08. Okay, now let's move on to customized tickers. So some stock traders follow customized tickers that offer trade-to-trade information. Okay, so the term tick is used whenever there is a change in the price of a share from one trade to the next. So they want to know what's going on throughout the day. A trade is considered an uptick if the price is at least 1 cent higher than the previous trade. And then a downtick is if the price is lower. These tick changes contribute to a type of market analysis known as money flow. Okay, it's important for people in the stock market or investors to understand, is money coming into the market or is money leaving the market? Okay, so when a stock is purchased at an uptick, it is considered a positive money flow. And then when it is purchased at a downtick, it is considered negative money flow. So less money is coming in. A calculated indicator, that is the average of a day's high, low, and close multiplied by the volume for the day, is the daily money flow. And I will show you in the next example how we calculate this. This calculation can be compared with that for the previous trading day, and it indicates whether there was a positive or negative money flow. So we can calculate yesterday's money flow, today's money flow, and if more money is coming in today than yesterday, then we would say that's a net money flow that is positive. But if less money is coming in today than it was yesterday, then it would be a net money flow in the negative direction. So it would be a negative money flow. All right, so let's take a look at this particular example. Okay, so Laura is interested in trades of Abercrombie and Fitch, and their symbol is ANF. She has been following the upticks and downticks for the past 2 days. Again, my apologies for the misspelling here. She knows that Abercrombie and Fitch closed on Tuesday at $20.68, with a high at $21.25 and a low at $20.50. And there were 11,902,000 shares traded on that day. Okay, and she found that Monday's closing price was $21.23. The high was $21.30, and the low was $19.95. And the volume for that day on Monday was 16,537,000 shares. So the question here is, was the net money flow from Monday to Tuesday positive or negative? Okay, so here's how we do this. I'm going to go ahead and write this out so it makes it a little bit easier to see what's going on here. Okay, so on Monday, we have a high of $21.30, a low of $19.95, and a close of $21.23, and the volume, trading volume, was 16,537,000. Okay, so that was Monday. Let me just go ahead and move this down a little bit. And then on Tuesday, we're going to capture similar information. So the high was 21.25. The low was 20.50. The close was at 20.68. And the number of shares sold was 11 million, or traded, was 11,902,000. All right, so what we're going to do is calculate the money flow for Monday and then also for Tuesday. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is find the average of these three numbers. All right, so for Monday, we have 21.30 plus 19.95 plus 21.23. We're going to take the average of those three, and that's going to give us $20.83. All right, now we're going to take $20.83 and multiply that by 16,537,000 shares, and that is going to give us 344,410,586.67. Okay, so that was the total money flow. And then on Tuesday, we're going to do the same thing again. We're going to take the average of the high, low, and close. And that's going to work out to $20.81. And then we're going to multiply that by the number of shares traded, which was 16,537,000. I'm sorry, not 16 million. It's 11 million. See, this is why it's important to write this out, because it's easy to mix the numbers up. All right, so we're going to multiply that out. And the total money flow for Tuesday was 247,680,620, and that's even. All right, so how do we determine the positive or negative money flow? It's going to be Tuesday money flow, I'm going to call this MF, minus Monday money flow. Okay, so that's going to be the 247,680,620 minus 344,410,586.67. And as you can already tell, this is going to be negative, right? So this should give us a negative money flow. We will calculate the exact amount using this calculator. And the negative money flow is of $96,729,966.67. Okay, so as you can see, from Monday to Tuesday, less money came in into the market, and so we have a net negative money flow. All right, hopefully this makes sense to you, gives you a better idea of what the ticker symbol tells you and how to calculate money flow, which is another aspect of understanding what's going on in the market. If any of this was confusing, as usual, go back to the beginning of the recording and listen to it again. Thank you.